Hi everyone. So in our last class, we started with function overloading. We covered many programs on function overloading. So initially we covered finding the area of a rectangle. I explained the concept of encapsulation. This instance variables and methods were stored together. That is what you call as encapsulation. But actually this is not data hiding. So when you make the instance variable as private, the instance variable will only be accessible inside this particular rectangle class. This instance variable cannot be accessed outside rectangle class. That is what is called as data hiding. Your encapsulation actually supports data hiding. Then later on we saw polymorphism. We saw how we can achieve polymorphism through different ways. That is, in this particular example, the add method are having different number of parameters. In this case, they're having same number of parameters, but the data types are different. In this particular method, both the add methods are having same number of parameters, same data type, but the sequence of data types are different. So in our last example, we saw how type promotion takes place in method overloading. So in this particular class, we will be demonstrating, we will be executing a program, which is a real world example for your function overloading. So once you execute this particular program, you will get a clearer picture what actually do you mean by function overloading, and also you will get a better understanding since we are implementing the concept of function overloading through a real world example. So let me write a question what we are going to implement first. So imagine there is a group of friends. Imagine there is a group of friends. There is a group of friends. These friends have gone for a party. This group of friends have gone for a party. So the waiter will come and give you the menu card. The waiter will come and give you the menu card. So this menu card contains three options. That means you can select nothing. So nothing, that option won't be available from the menu card. You can that is your self opinion. That is, you are not interested in eating anything, you can select nothing. But I believe there won't be any such friends who won't eat anything. So the second option is you will be selecting death by chocolate, DBC, death by chocolate. This is the second option in the menu we are going to create. And the last option is pizza. And the last option is pizza. So what we are going to implement now is that each option will have a method with same name, but we are going to pass different number of parameters. For example, for our nothing, we will be going to pass only the string nothing, because when you are not eating anything, there won't be any cost. There won't be any cost associated with it when you're not eating anything. So if you have preferred DBC, then I will pass the message DBC along with the cost 250. So when you prefer pizza, then I will have one more option. Whether will you prefer extra cheese? Whether you will prefer extra cheese. If you prefer extra cheese, then I will pass pizza followed by 300, which is the cost of the pizza, then followed by 100, which is the cost for extra pizza. If you didn't go for extra pizza, then we will pass pizza 300, 0. 300 is the cost for the pizza, where 0 is the cost for extra cheese, since you are not preferring extra cheese. So as you can see, we can create a method called as cost. We can create the same method cost for all these three preferences. In the first preference, I'm passing a string called as nothing. In the second preference, I'm passing two parameters. One is string, other one is integer. In the third preference of pizza, I'm passing three parameters. One is string, other one is integer, last one is also integer. So this is string, integer, and integer. Finally, we are going to find the total cost. We are going to find the total cost that needs to be paid by the group of friends. So this is the total cost that needs to be paid by the group of friends. This we are going to implement through the concept of function overloading. So let us try to understand how we can implement this particular concept or this particular problem statement through the concept of function overloading. So I will go to my encap poly package. So I will right click on this particular package. I will go to new, then I will create a class by name preference. So let me give the class name as preference. So this is my class name preference. So once I create a class name, then I will create one more class called as friend class friend. I'm creating a class called as friend. So let me create a class called as friend. So here what I will do, inside I will go to the main method here. So this is my template. This is the template. Here I will be obtaining the preference for all the friends, group of friends. So for that, first we need to obtain how many friends are going to the party. So I will create a main method in this particular class. Once I create a main method, I need to obtain input from the user. How many friends are going for the party? For that, I will create an object for the scanner class. As you can see, I am creating an object for my scanner class. So once I create an object for the scanner class, through this scanner class object, I can obtain the number of friends who are going for the party. So this scanner class needs a package. So let's import the util package java.util.star. So now the error gets disappears. Now I will ask how many number of friends are going for the party. Enter number of friends, enter number of friends going, enter number of friends going for the party. So there might be any number of friends. Let us assume there are 3 friends. Let us assume there are 3 friends. So I will obtain that particular value into variable n through scanner class object nextInt function. So the number of friends is stored in variable value n. Now I will create objects. I will create an array of objects for all these friends. If there are 3 friends, then I need to create 3 objects for the friend class. So for that, I will create an array of objects. So how we can create an array of objects? We know how to create an integer array. This is how we were creating an integer array. Int a is equal to new int of 5. So this created an integer array with 5 elements. In the similar manner, in place of int, I need to write friend, which is my user defined data type. Then I'll be creating the array name friends equals new friend of n. So if the number of friends who are going for party is 3, then it will create an array of 3 friends. Each friend will have all the information of this particular friend class. So it will create an array of 3 friends of this particular friend class. So once this has been created, now I will enter into a for loop because there are 3 friends. So int I is equal to 0, I less than n. The number of friends are 3. So I will enter into the for loop to obtain the preference of each of the friend. Now the waiter has given the menu to each of the friend. So initially it will be the first friend. So first friend will be at index 0. So I will create memory for that particular friend. Friends of I is equal to new friend. So the memory has been created for this particular friend, friends of 0. Now I will give a printf statement. What would you like to select? What would you like to select? So I will give in menu card. The waiter will use the menu card to first friend. So here A contains nothing. That means you won't select anything if he chooses A. B contains DBC. That means if he chooses B, he selects Death by Chocolate. C contains pizza. If he chooses C, then that means the friend is selecting pizza. So once the friend enters the choice, I will obtain that choice. So string, I'm obtaining the choice entered by the first friend. That means friends of 0. I'm storing that particular choice in a variable called as choice. String choice is equal to ob.next. ob.next. So the choice entered by the first friend is stored in this particular choice. Then I will check if choice dot equals nothing, if choice dot equals a. That means the user can select either A, B, or C. If user has selected A, then that is nothing. If choice dot equals A,
Then I will call a method of friends class through this particular object. Here friends of 0 is an object. Friends of 0 dot I cost. I will pass the string nothing. I will pass the string nothing. So that means if a friend selects nothing, then the choice will be A. Then I will be calling a method called as cost by passing a string called as nothing. That means here I need to give the definition of that particular method, void cost string message. Since we are passing only one particular parameter, string message, I will print SYSO you selected. So in this particular message, it will contain nothing now, since we are passing nothing. So you selected plus message, it will print you selected nothing. Then what I will do, I also need to print which friend selected which particular menu. So I need a count of friends who selected nothing. I also need a count of friends who selected DBC. I also need a count of friends who selected pizza. That's why what I will do, I will have a variable called as nothing count. That means this variable will contain the number of friends who selected nothing. So since we came to this particular method, this message contains nothing. It indicates the friend selected nothing. So then I'm going to increment my nothing count. Now the nothing count becomes 1. So if he has not selected anything, the nothing count becomes 1. Next, what I will do, I will check for the next option. If the friend has selected choice B, if it is choice B, that means he has selected DBC now. So when he has selected DBC, I will call the same cost method. But this time I will be passing different number of parameters. The first parameter will be the string, whereas the second parameter will contain the cost of DBC. As you can see, we are overloading the function called as cost. We are overloading this particular function. So what I will do, I will go here again. I will create one more method with the name cost. I'm creating one more method with the name cost. This time I'm having two parameters. The first parameter contains DBC, whereas my second parameter contains the cost in C. The cost, second parameter contains the cost. Then I will print the first message, SYSO, you selected plus message. So it will print you selected DBC, since we sent DBC to the message. Then what I will do, I will increment my DBC count. So DBC count plus. So it will increment. So for that, initially I need to have a variable called as DBC count. Initially it will be 0, but when someone selects DBC in the menu, that gets incremented. Now your DBC count becomes 1. And also finally, one of the friend has to pay the total amount. So for that, I will be having a total cost variable, static int total cost. So this is the cost, this is the amount that needs to be paid after they complete the party. So here, since when you select nothing, there is nothing to do in this particular cost method, because when you select nothing, there is nothing to add to the amount which you need to pay. But when you select DBC, that DBC cost is storing in C. That means we pass 250 here, that 250 gets stored in C. That needs to be added to the total cost. So here what I will do, I will have one more computation, that is total cost is equal to total cost. Initially my total cost will be 0 plus C. C contains 250. So since one of the friends selected 250, now 250 gets added to total cost. See, 250 gets added to total cost. Now what I will do for the last choice, that means else if your choice dot equals C. That means you have selected pizza. So once you have selected pizza, we are giving one extra option whether to have extra cheese or not. So I will ask the friend whether he needs extra cheese or not. So I will have a printer statement system.out.println extra cheese needed. You should enter either yes or no. Yes or no. Extra cheese needed either yes or no. So I will obtain the response. String response is equal to ob dot next. I'm obtaining the response. So it will be either yes or no. Then I will check the response. If the response is yes, the response dot equals is yes, that means the friend has opted for extra cheese. Then what I will do, I will call a method called as friends of I dot cost. Then I will pass the first message. That means the food the user has selected, the friend has selected, which is pizza. Then I will pass the cost of the pizza. Then I will pass the amount for the extra cheese. So this is the amount for my extra cheese. If the user has not selected extra cheese, that means if the user has given the response as no, then I will call the same method friends of I dot cost, friends of I dot cost. This time also I will send pizza as my selected option, then the cost of the pizza. But since no extra cheese option was selected, I will send 0 in that particular case. So for this particular cost method, we need to write the definition in our above class. So let me write the definition in my above class. Void cost. So we are sending pizza, that will be string message. Then we are sending the cost of the pizza. Then we are sending for extra cheese. So I will be writing that one as T, extra cheese. So here I will print SYSO, you selected. Initially it will print you selected pizza. So that will be in the message variable, you selected pizza. Then what I will do, I need to calculate the number of persons who preferred pizza. So for that I will be having a variable. With pizza count being 0 initially. So if someone selects pizza, I'm going to increment that pizza count. Since now some person selected pizza, so the pizza counts gets incremented. Then I need to add the total cost. So I need to add the total cost. So total cost is equal to what was the earlier cost. So when DBC was added, it was 250 plus cost of the pizza, which is 300. If there was any extra cheese selected, that also needs to be added. So this is the total cost that needs to be paid by the group of friends when the party ends. So as you can see here, here we are getting an error because I made a spelling mistake. So the object is friends, FRIENDS, friends of I dot cost dot pizza. I need to put a semicolon. So that's why, so the error got cleared. So let me summarize what all we did now. So I created a class called as friend. Inside that class, we add 3 static variables, nothing count, DBC count, pizza count. Then we add one more variable called as total cost. This is the amount that needs to be paid by the group of friends once they finish the party. Then I went to my another class called as preference. So inside the main method, I obtained the number of friends who were going for the party. That was stored to a variable called as n. Then I created an array of objects. This is my friend class. For this friend class, I created an array of objects with friends as the object's name. The number of array of objects will be n. That means if n is 3, it will create 3 friends objects. Friends of 0, friends of 1, friends of 2. For each of the friends object, I am allocating memory. So how much memory it will take? That much memory which is available in the friend class, that much needs to be allocated. Then I will give the menu for each of the friend. If we select, say, that is he's selecting nothing. If he selects B, he selects DBC. If he selects C, he is selecting pizza. So then I will obtain the choice given by each of the friend. If the choice is A, that means he has selected nothing. Then through that particular object, friends of 0 dot cost, I will call the cost method by passing nothing as the parameter. There are 3 cost method here. That means we have performed function overloading. But all these 3 cost methods are having different number of parameters. Since we are passing only one parameter now, that is nothing, it will go to the first cost method and it will print you selected nothing. Then nothing count gets incremented. That means there is one friend who selected nothing. If the choice selected is B, we will go to this particular cost method where we are having 2 parameters. So it will print you selected DBC, the DBC count gets incremented. Then also once the party gets finished, we need to pay the amount to the hotel. So that's why I'm adding the amount to my total cost. Initially it will be 0. The DBC cost is 250. Now the total cost will become 250. If someone selects C, if a friend selects C, then I will ask the friend whether he needs extra cheese or not. If the answer is yes, then I will pass 3 parameters. That means it will call the cost method with which is having 3 parameters. The first one is pizza. Second one is the cost of the pizza. Third one is if you have selected any extra cheese, it will contain 100. Otherwise, it will contain 0. So pizza count get incremented, which indicates a friend selected pizza. Then the total cost, which was earlier 250, for that I'm adding 300 rupees cost of the pizza and 100 rupees if extra cheese was selected. Otherwise, it will be 0. So that will give me the total cost. As you can see here, I'm having these 4 variables which are made as static. So why these 4 variables have been made as static? Because whenever an object call is taking place, so first time this object call will take place, second time this object call, third time this object call will take place if the number of friends are 3. So whenever a next object call takes place, the earlier value of these variables has to be retained. So if I didn't make this particular variables as static, then each variable will be treated as a new variable specific to that particular object. But static means once you make this particular instance variable as static, then this instance variable will get applied to all the object. All the instance variable will have access to this particular instance variable. And also when I call the cost method for the second time, it will take the previous value available. It will take the previous value which was set. So that is the reason we are making this instance variable to be static. So finally, I will print the total cost that needs to be paid by the group of friends. So SYSO, total cost for the party to be paid is so the total cost is stored in a variable called as total cost. This is the amount that needs to be paid by the group of friends after the party. So since my total cost is a static variable, I can directly access this total cost through the class name itself, because it is same to all the objects we have created. So I will be just writing friend dot total cost. As you can see, it is not giving me any error. So I can directly access the total cost instance variable since it has been declared as static through the class name itself. The total cost will be the same. So you won't create a separate total class instance variable for each of the object. So it will be only one instance variable that will be shared by all the objects. Then I will have one more method called as selection. In this particular method, I will print how many times each of the menu product was selected. So I will print a heading. The selection was as follows. SYSO. First I will print number of friends number of friends who selected nothing, are, number of friends who selected nothing are. So that we were storing in nothing count. So nothing count. So it will print the number of friends who selected nothing. Next, SYSO, number of friends who selected DBC are, that I am storing in a variable called as DBC count, that I am going to print. Then SYSO, number of friends who selected pizza are, that I'm storing in a variable called as pizza count, that I'm going to print. So as you can observe, this I'm printing in a method called as selection, which is also static. So that means I can access this particular method called a selection through the class itself. So I will go to my main method. So I'll go to my another class which contains the main method. Here what I will print, friend, through that particular class name friend, I will directly call the selection method. So it will call the selection method. Then it will print the number of friends who selected nothing, who selected DBC, and who selected pizza. Hope you got a clear picture with respect to this particular program. So what we did, we actually implemented function overloading through a practical example. So we provided three methods. Each of the three methods were having different signature. First method was having one parameter, second had two parameters, where the third method was having three parameters. Then I made this instance variables to be static because this instance variable needs to be shared by all the objects. So when a new object comes, the older value should be available for the newer object. That's why they were made static. Then we made one method also to be static. Finally, we access that particular method through the class itself. So let us run this particular program to check whether we implemented our program correctly. So I will go to the console. It is asking me to enter the number of friends going for the party. I will give 3. So the first individual will select nothing. The second individual will select DBC. And the third individual will select DBC. The cost for DBC is 250. Third individual will select pizza. The cost for pizza is 300. 300 plus 250 is 550. Then I need extra cheese. So that will be 100. 550 plus 100 is 650. As you can see, the total cost for the party to be paid is 650. The selection was as follows. Number of friends who selected nothing are 1. Number of friends who selected DBC are 1. Number of friends who selected pizza are 2. So you can implement the program on your own systems and you can check for different number of friends and different selections. So this completes function overloading or polymorphism. I hope you got a clearer picture with respect to function overloading or polymorphism. So nextly, I had given one small homework program in order to obtain the number of citizens in a particular constituency. Then you need to obtain the name and date of birth of each citizen in that constituency. Then you should check whether that particular citizen is eligible for voting or not. So this was the homework program I had given in my previous classes. Now we shall try to solve that particular homework program because if we keep on solving more and more programs related to the concepts, then you will start getting clearer picture with respect to those concepts. Now we are going to implement that particular voter program concept. So let us start with that particular voter program concept. So for this, I will create a package, new package. So let me name the package as extras. So inside this package, I'm going to create a class. So let me create a class and let me give a name for the class. Let me name the class as vote. I'm naming the class as vote. So this is where I'm going to create my main method. So this is the class, that is the vote class, where I'm going to create the main method. So let me create one more class which is called as voter. I will create one more class which is called as voter. So inside my class where I'm going to create the main method, first let me create the main method. After I'm creating the main method, I need to obtain the number of citizens present in a constituency. So for that, I need my scanner class. So I will have an object created for the scanner class. I will import my util package, import java dot util dot star. So after importing my util package, I will obtain the number of citizens present in the constituency. So system.out.println, enter number of citizens, enter number of citizens in the constituency, enter number of citizens in the constituency. That I am going to store in a variable called as n. Imagine there are 3 citizens in the constituency, which is not a real example, but for the purpose of explaining, I'm considering there are 3 citizens in the constituency. So we are going to create an array of objects for those 3 citizens. So my class name is voter. So voters is equal to equals new voter of n. If n is 3, it will create an array of 3 objects. So voters of 0, voters of 1, and voters of 2. All this object will have access to all the content which is provided inside the voter class. Then I will enter into a for loop for int I is equal to 0, I less than n. If the number of citizens are 3, it will loop for 3 times. For each of the voter, I'm creating the memory. So voter of I is equal to new voter. So initially I value will be 0. So for voter of 0, it will create memory. How much memory it will create? How much content is available inside this voter class? That much memory will be created. Then I will call a method called as read for each of the voter, for each of the citizen. I'm calling a method called as read. Inside read method, I am going to obtain the name. I'm going to obtain the name and date of birth. So let me have a variable called as name and date of birth. So I will have my read method void read. So here I need to obtain the name and date of birth. So SYSO enter name. So in order to obtain the name, I will create a scanner class object. So let me create a scanner class object. So through this scanner class object, I will obtain the name. This name we are now obtaining for voters of 0. This is the first citizen. For voters of 0 dot name, this gets accessed actually. So I'm assigning name is equal to ob dot next. So actually, since we are calling the object which called the read method is voters of 0, so it will be voters of 0 dot name. So for that, the name gets assigned. Next we will obtain the date of birth. So I will enter date of birth in the format, enter date of birth in the format. So I'm asking the user to enter the date of birth in this particular format, that is date, month, and year. That is a 4-digit. You should enter year in 4 digits, year. So then I'm going to store date of birth in this particular variable dob dot next. So since the object which has called the read method is voters of 0, so it will store voters of 0 dot name and voters of 0 dot dob. Similarly, it will happen for the remaining 2 voters. So when I becomes 1, voters of 1 dot read, and I becomes 2, it will be voters of 2 dot read. So once this happens, now we need to find whether a voter is eligible, to vote or not. So for that, I will be having one more for loop, because for each of the citizen, we need to check whether the voter is eligible to vote or not. So I will give for int I is equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. I will have a method. For each of the voters. That means voters of I. That means now I will be 0. Voters of I will call a method called as eligible. So if this returns true, then I will print voter is eligible to vote. Otherwise, I will print voter is not eligible. So SYSO, I will print voters of I need to obtain the name. For that, I am using a getter. So voters of I dot get name can vote. When the above method, that is when the eligible method returns true, if this particular method returns true, then I will obtain the name voters of zero dot get name. It will give me the name of voters of 0. So he can vote. Otherwise, if this particular eligible method returns false, then I will have a else clause. Inside else clause, I will write voters of I dot get name, that getter I need to write. He cannot vote. Voters of I dot get name cannot vote. So first, let me write a getter. So how we need to write a getter? So return type will be string because we are returning a string. So get is the keyword we need to use, and the instance variable value we are fetching is name. So the first letter will be caps get name. So it should return name. So that means when this particular method gets called, voters of I dot get name. So what you initially the I value will be 0. So it will be voters of 0 dot get name. So it will go to this particular getter. So it will obtain the name of voters of 0 dot name. So that particular name will be written. Then it will print can vote if this is true. For this, we need to write the method now. So let me write a method. So as you can see, this method should return a Boolean value. So we are checking whether it is true or false. So that's why my eligible method return type should be Boolean. Boolean eligible. So here what we need to do is that, so as you can see, the problem with this respective way in which we obtain the input is that we have obtained the input in terms of date of birth. From here, we need to obtain only the year part. Then we need to obtain the current year. If the current year is 2022, and if this particular year is 2000, then we need to subtract 2022 from 2000 in order to obtain 22. So there are two sub work we need to perform. First, we need to obtain the current year, that is 2022. Then I need to obtain the year part from this date of birth. So first, let us obtain the current year. So in order to obtain the current year, that is 2022, I have an inbuilt class called as calendar. So I'm going to use that inbuilt class called as calendar. Then I'm creating an object for a cal. So in order to create an object for the calendar class, you can directly call the static method. So here get instance is a static method. As we saw in our previous program, if any method inside a class is static, we can directly call that particular method through the class itself. So I called this particular method through calendar class itself. So it will provide me an instance. It will provide me an object for the calendar class. That object, we have named it as cal. So now what I will do, I will obtain the year. I will obtain the year. Or I can say I will obtain the age. Let me write it as age. I will obtain the age. How I can obtain the age? First, I need to obtain the current year. For that, I'm using the object of calendar class, which is cal we just created. Then I'm using the calendar class method, which is get. Inside that, I'm using my calendar inbuilt class. Then I am obtaining the year. So which is a static instance variable. So I'm using the calendar class object. Then I'm calling a method called as get. Then I will obtain calendar.year. So this will give me the year. So the current year, that is 2022, will be obtained now. Now what I need to do, I need to obtain the year part. So the 4 digits, this I need to obtain. For that, since this is a string, the date of birth you obtained, you are storing in DOB variable. Your DOB variable is a string. So first I need to parse it into integer. So that's why I'll be printing integer dot parse int. So whatever I'm going to pass inside this particular variable, that will be converted into integers. Now what I will be doing, I'll be taking my DOB, which will be in this particular format. Then I will perform a split operation. How I am going to split? I will be splitting based on this particular minus symbol. As you can see, then each of this will become one particular index. It will be DOB of 0, it will be DOB of 1, it will be DOB of 2. I'm splitting this DOB. This becomes DOB of 0, DOB of 1, DOB of 2. But I want DOB of 2 now, because that is where the year is stored. So that's why here I will specify the index as 2. I'll specify the index as 2. So this will give me the year part. So I obtained DOB, then I am performing a split operation based on this particular regular expression. So it will split using this regular expression. This becomes DOB of 0, this becomes DOB of 1, and this becomes DOB of 2. Then I will obtain the DOB of 2, which is the year, which is 4-digit. That will be converted into integer. Here I have obtained the current year, that is 2022. If this is 2000, 2022 minus 2000 will be 22. Now I'm going to check if my age is greater than or equal to 18. If my age is greater than or equal to 18, then what I will do, I will return true. Otherwise, if my age is less than 18, then I will return false. So in our example case, the age is 22. That means it will return true. So the true will get assigned here. So voter of 0.eligible gets true. So we will be printing. So voters of 0.getName. Suppose if the name is Ram, then it will print Ram can vote. So this is how the actual flow will happen. But now I also want the total number of voters and non-voters in a constituency. So for that time, I will use two more instance variables. So let me name the first instance variable as voters. Initially they will be 0. Then I will take one more instance variable called as non-voters. They will also be 0. As you can see, I am making these two instance variables as static. Why I am making them as static? Because this value will remain same for all the objects. That's why I made them as static. So when age is greater than or equal to 18, that means I need to increment my voters count. So I will increment my voters plus voters gets incremented. Then I will return true. That means he is eligible to vote. Whenever the age is less than 18, then what I will do, I need to increment my non-voters count, non-voters. So I will increment the non-voters count. Then I will return false. That means he is not eligible to vote. I will be returning false. So this voters and non-voters, that I will be printing at last. So it will that I will print at last, so that if anyone who is contesting for the election will get a clear picture of how many voters are present in the constituency. Total voters in constituency is so I can directly use my class name to obtain the static instance variable voters. Similarly, I will write SYSO total non-voters in constituency is voters dot non-voters. So it will give me the total number of citizens who cannot vote. So let us just summarize what all I explained now. So initially, we will be obtaining the number of citizens present in the constituency. For all those citizens, I am creating the objects. So my class name is voter. So it will If the number of citizens is 3, it will create 3 voter objects, voters of 0, voters of 1, and voters of 2. Then I will allocate a memory for each of the voter of 0, voter of 1, and voters of 2. Then we will call the read function for each of the voters. It will be voters of 0.read. So it will go to the read method. Then it will obtain the name and date of birth in this particular format. So for all the 3 voters, citizens, that means voters of 0, voters of 1, and voters of 2, we will store the name and date of birth. Then what I will do, I will have one more for loop. I will check their eligibility, whether they can vote or not. So I will call a method called as eligible for the first object, voters of 0.eligible. So it will go to the eligible clause. Then we create an object for the calendar inbuilt class. So say get instance is a static method. So we can directly call the static method through the class itself. So it will give an object for the calendar inbuilt class. Through that object we just created, we will obtain the current year. So it will give 2022. Then we will obtain date of birth for this particular object. That means voters of 0. Since eligible was called by voters of 0, the voters of 0 DOB will be obtained here. Then we will perform a split operation based on this particular regular expression. It will split into 3 tokens. We will obtain the second token, which will be year. That will be converted into integer. Then we will perform the subtraction. If the current year is 2022, if the DOB year is 2000, it will give me 22. I will check whether age is greater than or equal to 20. If it is so, then I will increment the voters count. Then I will return true. So when true comes here, that means he is eligible. Now I need to obtain the name. For that I am using a getter. So voters of 0.getName, it will go to this particular getter. Then obtain the name of voters of 0. Then it will print he can vote. This repeats for the remaining 2 citizens also. Finally, I am printing the total number of voters in the constituency and the total number of non-voters in the constituency. So let us execute this particular program so that you will get a clear picture how this program actually works. So let us run this particular program. Okay. I will go to the console. It is asking me to enter number of citizens in the constituency. Let me enter 3. Then it is asking me to enter name of the person. I will be entering 2. Date of birth 12 10 12 10 2000 12 10 2000. Second person Sham. Date of birth 12 10 2010. Next Bam. Date of birth 17 04 1999. Enter. As you can see, we entered 3 names, Ram, Sham, and Bam. So here these 2 persons can vote. That is, Ram can vote, Bam can vote, but Sham cannot vote because his age will be only 11 years. So as you can see, Ram can vote, Sham cannot vote, Bam can vote. Total voters in constituency is 2. Total non-voters in constituency is 1. So this is how you can implement a program in order to obtain the total number of voters and non-voters in the constituency. So what the logic we have written through coding part, this we are going to implement through a graphical user interface. So that now becomes a project. When you implement this particular code through a graphical user interface, then it will become a project. So in this particular class, we covered this particular program, that is finding the number of voters and non-voters in a particular constituency. And also we found who all can vote. We printed the names of citizens who can vote, and also we printed the names of citizens who cannot vote, as you can see in the console. Then previously we covered the inheritance program, the function overloading program in a real world. So we saw how different methods gets called, because all these methods are having different signatures. So based on what we are passing in our main method, different signature gets called. So we implemented this through a real world example where a group of friends go for a party and they select the different options from the menu. Based on the options they are selecting, different cost method will get called. Finally, we calculated the total cost that needs to be paid by the group of friends for the party, and also we printed the number of friends who selected nothing, the number of friends who selected DBC, and the number of friends who selected
Pizza. So just go through both the programs. If you get any doubts with respect to the programs we covered in this class, you can ping me the doubts. I will be able to answer your doubts. So make sure you cover all the concepts in continuity, so that for all the future concepts we are going to cover, you will get a better understanding. Thank you.